Good morning. These are the notes on reflections, rotations, and translations. And specifically in this video, I'm going to talk about reflections. So this lesson, we're going to be working on it for a few days. We're looking at shapes that are reflected, specifically here. And reflection will always involve a flip across a line. Okay? So reflections, again, will always have a flip across a line. Okay? And so when we look at number 1, we want to identify what is the line of reflection. So it tells us here to write a rule to describe each transformation. Well, this happens to be a reflection because it's a flip. And we always look at the original figure, which is QID, I think QID, and its reflection will be Q prime, D prime, I prime. Okay, so that's how we tell which one's the original. The original has no tick mark. So over here, GXU, that is our original. And then we have a reflection that would give us G prime, X prime, U prime. Okay, so the original doesn't have the little dashes. The new one does. The reflected image does. Okay, but here you might see exactly where the reflection is. You might see that there's a line that goes right in between Q and Q prime. But if you don't see it immediately, the way that you're going to find that is you're going to, you can even draw the segment between these two. And you can say, well, that segment is 2 units long. It's 2 units long. And so the line of reflection has to go right in the middle, right here. Okay? If I do the same thing with I prime, well, that is 1, 2, 3, 4 units. And so halfway through, or the midpoint, would be right in the middle here. Okay? So we draw our line of reflection right here. Okay? And that line, so we would say it's a reflection across the line y equals -1. Okay? And at this point, we have a little bit of a review for the class. And you'll see we have 4 different types of lines here. These are similar to the types of lines of reflection that we could have. Now, if you remember from Algebra 1, anytime you have a horizontal line, your equation is going to be y equals a number. Okay? And so in this case, we would say y is equal to +2 because it's 2 above the x-axis. Where anytime you have a vertical line, you're going to have x equals a number. So this is horizontal. Vertical will be x equals a number. So x equals 1, 2, x equals 2 in this case. Now this third one, we have a y-intercept of 0, and it has a slope of 1. So we would say y equals, if it was y equals mx plus b, we would say y equals 1x plus 0, or just y equals x. And then the opposite of that, we have y equals -x, because you have a slope of -1, and it goes through the origin, or 0, 0, for its intercept. Okay, so write these down, kind of tuck them aside, because we will be using them. Okay, so now if we come back here, we see we have a horizontal line of reflection, and it goes through the point y equals -1, and so our equation is y equals -1. Now, if you feel like you've got it, go ahead and pause and try this one on your own, but I'll go ahead and walk through this as well. Okay, so we see that it's a reflection because it's a flip. Okay, so we have reflection across. Now we need to find that line of reflection. So I'm going to say, well, how far are x and x prime from each other? Well, they're 2 units away, so halfway between, right here, that's got to be on my line of reflection. And the same thing if I look at u prime, 1, 2, 3, 4, They're 4 units away from each other, so halfway through is 2 units away. And so my line of reflection then is right here. And so lastly, we want to find an equation for that line. And again, it's horizontal, so it's y equals a number. And that number is -1 because it's down 1 from the x-axis. Okay? Now, moving forward, going the opposite direction. What if I give you the line of reflection and then you have to reflect it? So first, y equals 1, that's a horizontal line at y equals 1. So we start with that. Then, we're going to work backwards. We're going to say, look at each point and we're going to say, how far is that from the line? Well, z is right on the line. So z prime is going to be in the same spot. Okay, if you have a point that's on the line of reflection, it doesn't move. Now p, again, we're going to count down perpendicular to that line. And I'm going to say, well, p is 1, 2, 3 above the line. So 3 below the line, 1, 2, 3, is where my new, the image of p is. And we'll call that p prime. Right? Same thing with r. R is how many units above the line? It's 2 units. And so we go 2 below, and we find the image of r, or r prime. And so lastly, we want to draw the triangle. And we have the new triangle there. All right, we're going to jump down to number 5. This time we have a reflection across the x-axis. So here is the x-axis, it's our line of reflection. So we're going to walk through the process. Again, if you feel comfortable, go ahead and do it on your own, but I'll walk through the process. So I say f is 1 below the line, so I want to have 1 above the line to find my new f, or the image of f, which is f prime. I would say the same thing with p. P is 1 below, and so I have to have 1 above to find the image of p. D is 1 unit above the line, so I'm going to have 1 below to get d prime. And finally, C is 1, 2, 3, 4 units above the line, so I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 units below the line of reflection to get C prime. Okay, so we're just counting distance from our line of reflection to find the image. We've got the new image. And so if you look at it now, it is definitely a reflection of this figure. It looks a little weird because part is above the line, part is below, but that is your line of reflection. All right, now these get harder. So this time our reflection is across the line y equals x. And if you remember, y equals x is a diagonal line. It has a slope of 1 through the origin. Okay, so I'll start with my line of reflection here. And if you noticed, in the other ones, we were always counting the distance is always perpendicular. Distance is always perpendicular. So as we're finding the distance from the line, this time we're going to be counting across boxes. Okay, because that distance would be perpendicular to our line of reflection. Okay, so these are just examples, but we'll use that down below. So let's start with Q. Q is right on the line, so that's nice and easy. It doesn't move, so Q prime is in its same location. Now N, if I count, and I need to be careful with my line of reflection because I am going to be counting. So if I move across the diagonal, it's only half a box away. It's half a box away from the line. And so to find its image, I have to count half a box away on the other side. And so this is my n prime. Okay? You can just kind of watch this one and then go back and copy the notes later. Now for E, and it doesn't matter which one I do when, I'm just kind of going as I see I'm going easiest to hardest, actually. So now E is it's kind of above or to the left of the line, and so again, I have to count across the box. Well, to get to the line is half of the distance across, and so to find the image, I have to go half the distance across the box, and here's E prime. Okay, and lastly with D, I have 1.5 units from the line. So you see 1.5, so I have to go 1.5 across down here, and I have D prime. Okay, and so now I can sketch the graph. And we have the pre-image and its image, or its reflection across the line y equals x. All right, so now we'll do the last one here, the last reflection. And again, if you remember, y equals negative x has a slope of -1, and it goes through the origin, 0, 0. So we're going to sketch our line of reflection. And now, again, in order to find the distance to the line, we have to move perpendicular. And so we're going to be counting across boxes to get to that line. Okay. And so with R, we're one away to the left or below the line. And so I'm going to jump across one more box, and that'll give me R prime. For W, I'm going 1, 2. I'm 2 away from the line. So when I jump 1, 2 away over here, W prime will be here. Okay, now notice that AE is not perpendicular to this line B. Okay, it's not going exactly across the diagonal. So don't let that mess you up, because this could be challenging. So I'm cutting across the diagonal. E is 1, 2 units away. 1, 2 units away. So I'm going to count 1, 2, and E prime is down below A. So now I do the same thing with A. Again, remember, make sure you're cutting across the diagonal exactly. So I'm 1.5 away. 1.5. So I go another 1/2 and 1, and I get A prime. Right. And then if I draw the diagram connecting the images, we should have the reflection of WRAE. So WRAE is W prime, R prime, A prime,